While the Railroad Commission has been led by Republicans for many years, Democrat Krista Castaneda has received the endorsements of Texas's largest newspapers. She joins us now. Good morning, and thanks for being here today.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Well, just as I asked Jim Wright, I'll ask you as well. What do you believe the role of the Railroad Commission should be?
Well, as you know, it has not anything to do with railroads. It's the oil and gas regulator for the state of Texas, and it's got an important oversight of basically all the drilling and production of oil and gas that goes on in the state. And so its real role is to follow the laws that have been on the books for 100 years, and the number one principle is to conserve our precious natural resources and to make sure that we're developing them in a way that benefits all of Texas and not wasting them and not polluting the environment.
You've said that if the commission could just follow its own rules and its own policies, that it would be able to stop a lot of waste, especially when flaring is concerned. But what can the commission do that it's not currently doing?
So flaring, as your audience may know, is the intentional lighting on fire of natural gas. It happens a lot in the Permian in West Texas because they're producing oil and they want the oil because it's valuable, but the natural gas that comes up with it costs more to move to market than the price they'll get when they get it to market. So it's economically expedient for them to just light it on fire. Now, there's a number of problems with that. It has all kinds of health consequences, such as lung disease, and causes premature births. And it's just a waste of our energy. What the Railroad Commission can do is stop allowing exception permits for flaring. I talk about how it's been against the law for 100 years. So it's illegal to flare unless you have an exception permit, and the Railroad Commission can stop granting the exception permits that it's granting as a routine course of business.
East Texas has a lot of people, like much of the state, who work in the energy industry, and a lot of them are still waiting for their jobs to come back. So what can or should the commission do, or what would you do to help get these jobs going again?
Well, look, the Railroad Commission also had a very important, very historic function that it failed to fulfill in the spring when the pandemic hit, and that is to make sure that the market is stabilized. So you might recall that we had a historic, epic oil market crash in the spring because we're looking at each other on the computers rather than driving to be together and me be with you there in the studio. It's happening all across the world, so we're not using oil. The price of oil crashed as a result because the supply so greatly exceeded demand. The Railroad Commission could have reined in production for a specific period of time to stabilize the market and prevent companies from going out of business and prevent all of the job losses. Frankly, part of this is due to the Railroad Commission's failure to act.
And then if you are elected next month, you'd be the lone Democrat serving with two Republicans. How do you think you'd be able to work with them to be able to accomplish some of these things that you want to do?
Well, first and foremost, I operate on facts. I operate on information. I'm an engineer and an attorney who's worked in the industry for over 35 years. I know a lot about this business, and I know how to get to the issues that matter. And I believe that all of our elected officials, whether they be Democrat or Republican, should know how to get to the issues that matter and do what's best for all of Texas. That's what my mission is going to be. I'm hoping that I will find some ability to meet the Republicans on the issues that matter to all of Texas, which are clean air, clean water, don't mess with Texas, and don't take our jobs.
Some critics say the commission just doesn't have enough money to do what it needs to do, that it can't properly pay for all the regulators to help enforce its policies. So what could you do to try and find more money to increase the commission's budget?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of issues there, you know, because we fund so much of our state budget on oil and gas taxes and royalties. That industry has been hit so hard that we've got a big hole in our budget. But nonetheless, now's the time to make an investment in the Railroad Commission, and the legislature hopefully will recognize that, because we can pick up a lot of talent and a lot of resources that really weren't available to us at a competitive price back when the industry was in full swing. So that's one thing I'd advocate for. But, you know, let me just talk about the fact that I know a lot of oil companies. I've already done a lot of town halls with them, and I want to reach out to them directly to advocate for some of the things that I know can be done. And frankly, the half of the industry or more that's responsible about these issues knows how to do this. We just have to have the political will to get to better at the Texas Railroad Commission.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Krista.
It was great to be with you. Thanks for having me.